Welcome everyone to today's Connected and Automated Vehicle Industry Briefing. My name is Julieta Jung and I'm the Senior Manager of Transport for New South Wales Future Mobility Programs. I'm your host for today's event. This forum is being run as a live stream and it is being recorded. We'll provide you with the recording and slide pack soon after the session. Before we officially begin, I'd like to present the Acknowledgement of Country. I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation as the traditional custodians of the lands from which I am speaking to you today. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which each of you are living and working from today. As we share our knowledge, we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, as it is their knowledge and experience that shapes the success of the future. The forum format will run as follows. This first segment will provide an introduction and overview of the New South Wales cab readiness strategy and the cab on-road bus trial. The second segment will be a live stream panel with the subject matter experts from Transport for New South Wales and Bus New South Wales. Please use the Q&A function at the top right-hand corner of the screen to ask questions throughout the session. Also remember to add your name and organisation when you do so. We'll aim to answer as many questions as we can in the time we have available, and we'll follow up on any unanswered questions in subsequent communications. Joining us in the audience today are representatives from national and international locations from a variety of industries such as automotive, telecommunications, AI, consulting, research, insurance, government and unions. A big welcome to you all. I'd like to now introduce you to our first speaker, Richard Host, Chief Technology and Innovation Officer at Transport for New South Wales. Richard Host is a government CIO with executive leadership experience in private and public sectors and active involvement in the industry. Nationally recognised as one of the top 50 CIOs, he is responsible for Coca-Cola's Amatel's global financial system and later its technology deploying automated warehouses in field sales and logistics systems, call centres and a range of other technologies. For the past 14 years as a government CIO, Richard has delivered ICT programs and systems that have pushed the boundaries of the traditional public sector. I'll hand over to Richard to complete the introduction.
Thank you, and good morning, transport leaders, advocates and enthusiasts. My name is Richard Host and I'm really happy to be the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer at Transport for New South Wales. And I'm really excited to be here today to talk about my favourite topic. So Transport for New South Wales is acting now to prepare our customers and communities for new and emerging transport that's going to shape and transform the way we move our people and goods. And we are investing heavily to build a strong technology foundation that's going to make New South Wales a technology leader in this space. Just a few examples. We're investing to meet net zero emissions by transitioning to zero emission electric buses. We're rolling out heaps of charging points for electric vehicles. We're working on hydrogen, fuel and green sources of energy. So the New South Wales government is investing almost $500 million in tax cuts and incentives to drive uptake and reduce barriers for electric vehicle purchases over the next 4 years. We're also investing more than $500 million to improve customer journeys through world-class mobility as a service and Opal Next Generation ticketing to enable commuters to add a virtual Opal card to their digital wallets and ensure that New South Wales continues to have the most modern, reliable and world-leading public transport ticketing system. And of course, we're boosting freight productivity outcomes by producing a growing set of data which is available on our Freight Data Hub and Open Data Hub. And the new data will assist freight operators to optimise supply chains, efficiencies and better inform freight planning. And of course, we're investing in digital infrastructure and systems. An example is our SCATS adaptive traffic management system that controls traffic lights and improves traffic flow. And that's a system that's used in 180 cities across the planet. Now, all these investments and heaps more investments are about delivering innovation R&D, and industry talent that's going to support the transition to new technologies and services and make us globally competitive. And with an unparalleled amount of investment in transport, and Transport for New South Wales is investing $70 billion to deliver game-changing infrastructure and services, to innovate and bring world-first tech solutions. And there's so many opportunities and customer benefits that we're going to see right across the transport network. Now, at Transport for New South Wales, we've developed a technology roadmap to meet our ambitious vision to be a global leader in the use of transport and technology services. And our vision is about delivering better end-to-end journeys for our passenger and freight customers. And that's regardless of where they live in New South Wales or what mode of transport they're using, or even who is providing the transport. And one of our key technology programs and focus areas is connected and automated vehicles. And that's why we're here today to discuss how Transport for New South Wales is enabling these revolutionary vehicles in New South Wales and on Australian roads. So at Transport, we're striving for a connected and automated future, because it's going to reduce road fatalities. It's going to improve journey times. It will allow our customers to have access to seamless and affordable and flexible and personalised journeys. And this journey has already started. So I'm sure that many of you listening today are already driving pretty smart cars, with low-level autonomy, with lane keeping and emergency braking and all of that. But very soon we're going to see level 4 and 5 vehicles on our roads, and we need to be ready. So that's why since 2017, we've been investigating CAV technology right here in New South Wales. Now, we have a future mobility testing and research centre at Cadell, and that's going to become a world-class proving ground and research hub for new innovations and transport technologies. And at this centre, we are regularly undertaking testing and assurance measures on all sorts of new and emerging vehicles. In fact, we've been testing level 4 automated vehicles, one that was developed by Sydney Uni. And we're continuing to invest heavily in this facility because it's really, really important. We, of course, over the last few years, a while back, we rolled out shuttle trials across major metropolitan and regional cities, like Sydney Olympic Park and Armidale and Coffs Harbour and Newcastle. And these trials put us on the path towards our future transport vision by helping us to understand CAV technology and the deployment opportunities that they will bring. And of course, that sparked a whole lot of international interest and a bunch of world firsts, especially the Coffs Harbour BusBot, which was the first automated shuttle in the world to provide a fully automated service in a public setting without an onboard supervisor. So that was really cool. So we are already well and truly on the path. And now we're working really hard to get ready for CAVs by 2027. Because we're going to be seeing a step change from these smaller scale trials to more advanced trials, such as the on-road CAV bus trial, for instance. And that there's another one of my colleagues that's going to talk to you about that. So that's going to be really exciting. And then our newly released CAV readiness strategy that you're also going to hear about from the next speaker. And that's going to be incredibly exciting. So look, Transport for New South Wales fosters a culture of collaboration and growth. And we know that the capacity for innovation-led growth is not just in the hands of government, but also in industry leaders just like you. And we rely on SMEs from all companies, including local, large-scale global firms, universities, small-scale startups. Investment in industry research and partnerships is absolutely critical for generating the knowledge and skills required to create and improve transport services and products and processes. And the scale of transformation on our doorstep is enormous. And no one organisational sector is going to be able to harness this alone. We need to come together to make sure that New South Wales, Australia, our industries, our communities are well positioned to benefit from the opportunities that arise. And for this reason, we are encouraging partnerships between government, industry, academia to drive this transition. And to this end, we are committed to supporting organisations to develop, test and deploy connected and automated vehicles on the New South Wales road network. So that's very, very exciting indeed. Now, in addition to this, CAV readiness is not just about vehicles and infrastructure. It's also about people, jobs, skills, all those things that surround the change. And our strategy focuses on increasing local CAV knowledge and skills. And we're very, very serious about it. And I'm personally passionate about seeing our industry and workforce grow. And I believe that we owe it to our children and our children's children to lay the foundations for them to grab the opportunities that are coming. And now, from creating jobs for these mechatronics students that we've got at our universities today, to creating a future for the kids that are currently playing on the floor with their Meccano in their bedroom, we owe it to them to be able to grab these opportunities in New South Wales and in Australia. So to wrap up, Transport for New South Wales is really excited about the next few years in this industry. And this technology and change and challenge is amazing, and it's going to change the transport landscape. So we know that with change comes extraordinary opportunity, and we look forward to harnessing the opportunity by evolving and working together with partners to deliver better end-to-end journeys for our customers and communities. And I also just want to finish off by making one thing really clear. Connected and automated vehicles is not just some distant future thing. It's a now thing. And that's why we're working on policy now. That's why we're building testing capabilities now. That's why we're supporting vehicles on our network now. That's why we're planning for the future now and investing in infrastructure now, and why we're seeding the growth of the industry now. So New South Wales is the perfect state to seek out collaboration and partnership opportunities. I mean, with Sydney being one of the highest ranking cities in the Asia Pacific region when it comes to innovation, and also the startup capital of Australia, hosting up to half of all new startups, I encourage you to get involved with the growth and development of the CAV strategy and the on-road CAV bus trial, and it's shaping up to be a really, really exciting journey. So thanks for your time, and I'll hand you back to Julietta.
Thank you, Richard. I'd now like to welcome our next speaker, Evan Walker, Director of Future Mobility at Transport for New South Wales. Evan is a highly experienced Director of Innovative Technology Programs with a demonstrated history of working in the transport industry and leading the creation of new business areas. He has been working in transport for over 20 years, and during this time, he has been consistently rolling out new and emerging transport technologies, including CAVs, electric vehicles and buses, drones, aviation technology, e-scooters, and road safety technologies. I'll pass over on to Evan to speak about the work of Future Mobility and the New South Wales CAV Readiness Strategy.
Look, thanks, Jules, and thanks, Richard, for such an inspirational opening. It's fantastic to have a CIO and also a leader in this space who's so passionate. It really gives our team such great drive. My name's Evan Walker. I'm the Director of Future Mobility at Transport. For those of you not familiar with our work, we're a team that's focused on exploring new tech through research, trials and deployments. And we use this work to build strategies that will hopefully lead to some of this amazing technology becoming business as usual and part of the transport mix from now into the future. Since 2016, we've explored and tested the feasibility of a variety of new things. The rollout of zero emission buses is something we got involved in at the start. We've led the way in the establishment of strategies to get EVs on our network, and even this year we've got a fast charging program that's made the EV drive between Sydney all the way to Broken Hill possible, which is such a fantastic step forward. But with all those projects, we started off and then it moves out into our business to become business as usual. Our testing and research centre, we've delivered a series of comprehensive test programs for NCAP, and OEMs and various R&D activities. And now I'd really like to show you a bit of a video of some of our key connected and automated vehicle projects and our testing activity. The video really highlights the work of our team.
Technology is surging ahead. Fully automated vehicles will hit New South Wales streets in the next decade. We're ready to embrace this future and want to be a leader in connected and automated vehicles adoption. We have a plan, a CAV readiness strategy. Priorities include building CAV knowledge and development capabilities. So the New South Wales Government's committed $5 million to a trial to develop a full-size automated passenger bus. It's big picture thinking to bring investment opportunities, knowledge, and deliver a safer, more connected future on our roads.
So in the CAV space, we've helped form regulation in the past to support on-road activity of CAVs, and the team's also developed a safety assurance framework. So any new technology, any CAV projects that have come to our doorstep, we've been able to get onto our road network, which is really unique across the country. And this work really supports the launch of our CAV readiness strategy and our on-road bus trial. So I'm really excited today to talk about this CAV readiness strategy. It's such a fundamental piece of work to really create the path forward for this tech in New South Wales and transform the way we move people and goods into the future. We think that when we harness this tech effectively, it's really going to help deliver safer roads, productivity boosts, and more sustainable and accessible services. We know there's significant investment in this tech globally. And like Richard alluded to, it's happening right now. We know companies like Tesla, Waymo, the list goes on, where they're actually putting these vehicles on the road now, even without drivers. So it is a real space that's moving along quite quickly. And what's really important for us is to make sure that our infrastructure, our people, the community are really in the right place to embrace the most from this tech into the future. Our strategies identified a program that we think will accelerate the real world adoption of this technology where we can see benefits. The readiness program is a combination of priority areas to really help us develop our confidence in the safety and capability of the tech. And it has policy and regulatory frameworks looking at a skilled industry and the appropriate infrastructure to really build a strong local ecosystem. And within the program, we've identified 6 core areas that we really think will help build this ecosystem. The first one for us is about getting the road network ready for CAVs. We aim to have a statewide road network ready for CAVs into the future, meaning that our assets are appropriate, the infrastructure's right, markings, signs, traffic lights, the concept of operations for how this tech will operate our network, all those things have been contemplated, thought and constructed and moved into our forward construction and maintenance programs. But beyond the network readiness, it's about the physical and digital testing capabilities. So in the video, you would have seen our Future Mobility Testing and Research Centre. We're already heavily invested in the physical capabilities around testing, which will make more pronounced into the future, but we're also really keen to look at the digital side as well. Earlier this year, we announced $9.5 million to upgrade that physical test track and testing facilities, including a new intersection. But the digital side, the virtual test bed, is a new area that we're really keen to work with people like yourselves to explore what that might look like and what it might deliver. The really exciting part of work that we do is about testing and deploying this technology on the network. And we've got a great record of having done that already. We've had over 15,000 passengers taking a ride on wholly automated shuttles in New South Wales with fantastic feedback, where people who've actually ridden on the vehicles are quite comfortable, really enjoy the experience and can see how it fits into our future. We know that these public facing trials really builds customer confidence. Community sentiment is really positive, with almost 100% of customers saying they felt safe on these projects, and 85% much more likely to use this kind of tech into the future. Next, it's also about shaping policy, legislation, and eventually our customer outcomes. So we work, nationally with the National Transport Commission on the federal CAV laws, but also in New South Wales, we do have our own legislation where we've been able to enable a range of trials. They have been small scale to date, but that framework, our safety assurance framework, can enable much bigger things. First of which is this CAV bus trial, which we'll talk about in a second. But the work we do in New South Wales then helps inform the national framework, and we're working really closely nationally to try and hit that 2026 target that the NTC has. Another part of our readiness strategy is around supporting freight services and freight optimisation. We know that both in long distance and first and last mile and point to hub freight delivery, automated technology can really help with productivity outcomes. We know, say, for example, first and last mile robo vehicles could provide fast, trackable door-to-door delivery services, and in the heavy freight area, massive opportunity to improve safety and look at how on-road journeys can become a much more effective way and part of the freight future. We're also really focused in this strategy on increasing local knowledge and skills. This is such a critical part of what Richard was speaking about earlier, and why it's really fantastic to have industry people, both international and local, at this event and around the projects we deliver. It's really critical that we build the infrastructure, but also the knowledge and skills in New South Wales to help support this technology. From our experience of the trials we've already run, we know that having local knowledge, local capability is so critical to success. And this local subject matter expertise and upskilling is really why we want to run these projects. We want to deliver a readiness strategy now, so we are ready as an industry and government ecosystem to really get the most out of this tech in the future. So by now, you're probably all wondering what's next. How are we going to bring this vision to life? So right now, we're undertaking technical planning and program development to support the strategy, and we're looking into 2023 and beyond in terms of future funded programs. But in the meantime, we really want to hear from yourselves on how we're going to shape the future of transport in New South Wales using this tech. We know that this isn't up to us alone. We're open for business. We really want to get the conversation started about our strategy and what those collaboration opportunities are. We've got an industry portal that's open right now and a survey, so you can provide feedback directly to us on the program, on the strategy that we've put out. And to the end of August, we're also offering one-on-one interviews with our project team, with industry people who really want to provide that direct input and get a really good understanding of what our readiness strategy is all about. You can get in touch, organise one of these one-on-one interviews by visiting our porthole or emailing us at futuremobility@transport.nsw.gov.au. So thanks everyone, thanks for the time that you're putting in, and it's great to see how many people are actually on the line, and I'll hand back to Jules to kick it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. I'd like to now introduce our next speakers, Sissy Chu, Senior Project Officer of Future Mobility, and Daniel Ho, Strategic Sourcing Manager at Transport for New South Wales. Sissy has been with Transport for over 5 years, and within the last 3 years has been working in the emerging technology space. Coming from a civil engineering and finance background, she has supported and led a variety of different projects ranging from the e-scooter trials to the AV Rideshare Data Challenge, Coffs Harbour Bus Spot Shuttle Trial, and more. Sissy will be the project lead for the on-road CAV bus trial. Prior to joining Transport in Feb, Daniel Ho worked in consulting as a cost engineer and has been involved in many major transport infrastructure projects across Australia. He has experience in roads, bridges, rail and metro projects, and has worked with various designers at all stages of the project lifecycle to achieve accurate cost estimates. Daniel brings these skills along with newly acquired ones into the procurement space and will be the procurement manager for this RFEOI. I'll pass over to Sissy to start the CAV on-road bus trial presentation.
Thank you, Julietta, and honoured guests. It's a privilege to be able to speak to you all today. The bus network plays an incredibly crucial part of the transport system in New South Wales, and so much of our community rely on these services every day of their lives. We recognise that our bus industry, manufacturers, operators, drivers, are all heavy lifters in delivering these high quality services to our customers. And we want to ensure that as a government, we are doing as much as we can to support this industry in staying at the forefront of technology. With that being said, I'm very excited to be able to speak to you as the project lead today about the launch of our on-road connected and automated vehicle bus trial, for which we have allocated $5 million to enable. CAV technology has the potential to enhance the customer experience with improved service frequency, reliability, efficiency, and safety of the bus system. And our government is looking to harness all of that new CAV technology has to offer, especially as many of the audience would know today, we're in the midst of transitioning to a full fleet of zero-emission buses. Previously, Transport has partnered with industry to conduct CAV trials of smaller shuttle buses with carrying capacity of 12 people and in limited low-speed use cases. With this initiative, we will look to step up from these previous trials and take our learnings to enable the trialling of CAV technology on a full-size bus and tested with customers along an existing service. Our ambitions and goals for this trial are large and diverse. We want to provide the opportunity to deepen collaboration across government and industry so that we can all better understand, prepare for, and stay at the forefront of new connected and automated technology. Develop learnings around the feasibility, scalability, and impacts of this technology to inform and help us future-proof our fleet-wide transition to ZEBs, including how it might shape and improve existing services, as well as physical and digital infrastructure. Finally, we're looking to enable customer readiness and acceptance of this technology through trialling with real-world passengers on our bus services. And we need your help. We've opened up expression of interest to call upon you all, our transport leaders and emerging technology enablers, to partner with us, to plan, develop, and safely operate an end-to-end full-size CAV bus trial. Next slide, please. We are welcoming all parties to lean in and become part of this incredibly exciting transport transformation and CAV evolution. Successful proponents will have the opportunity to realize a number of benefits, including, but not limited to, developing first-hand understanding of emerging technology and having the opportunity to test and deliver new CAV technologies in real life and with real customers along our state road network. Partnering and working with us at Transport, who will provide legislative safety assurance support as well as access to testing support at the Future Mobility Testing and Research Centre that Evan mentioned earlier. You'll be part of a high-profile, world-leading project to unlock opportunities for our local bus industry and help shape the future of buses. We hope that the many representatives listening today will feel encouraged and inspired as we are about this bus trial. Now, taking a look at the trial scope, we'll be looking to award up to $5 million for trialling of approximately 18 months. This includes design, delivery, and trialling. This ambitious timeframe is to ensure that we can capture learnings to align with our ZEB transition timelines. Beyond this initial trialling period, Transport may look to extend the trial or alternatively bring the trial back into operations. As such, we'll be looking for a trial vehicle, or what I'd like to call the future bus platform, to be designed from our latest iteration of zero emissions bus two-door city bus requirements, which are provided in AREBA. We want to challenge this industry to see how far you can safely push CAV technology on a zero emissions bus in the New South Wales environment, and to think of it from a future-proofing perspective. What are the components that we can realise benefits now compared to what an upgrade might not look like in a few years? How are these systems built on board so that they're both modular and integrated enough to support that progression into automated driving capabilities? We want to see use cases with the greatest value, and so are agnostic to the location of this trial. It can be anywhere in New South Wales. However, we have included on-road in the title of this trial, and as that would suggest, we've made it mandatory to include some form of testing along an existing route during the trial, which is to provide us the opportunity to really test this technology with the customers, the drivers, the operators, against the existing experience. We're looking to award directly from this RFEOI process, and we'll be looking for proposals that can deliver an end-to-end trial. That is, including support from any parties with the relevant skills, capabilities, and capacity to deliver the full scope of the proposed trial. We're encouraging collaboration and have enabled the bus industry collaboration portal to support this. Through this portal, you'll be able to connect with other parties seeking for or interested in collaborating on this trial and in this space. And I would highly recommend a representative from every company here today to jump on and complete a profile. Proponents will have the flexibility and discretion to work with partners under whatever arrangements they feel appropriate in order to deliver our project outcomes and objectives. However, contractually, Transport will be looking to enter a contract with a lead proponent. Next slide. EOI process. Transport will be providing the opportunity for respondents to discuss their emerging proposals in interactive sessions with a panel of Transport stakeholders. These sessions will provide proponents with the opportunity to pose questions or pitch use cases or ideas to that Transport panel and seek feedback further to develop their proposed trials. Feedback will be provided in real time, so will enable fast reiteration and refinements to proposals. The sessions will be completely confidential and will not be used for the purpose of evaluating final submissions, with the sole purpose to assist proponents in developing their project proposals so that they can deliver high quality and end-to-end trials. A major part of our role at Future Mobility is to coordinate the regulatory approvals and ministerial exemption audit processes to get some of these trials on the road. So a big part of our job is in enabling and co-delivering a successful trial. We'll be working with proponents to step through these approval processes. For this trial, we'll be providing successful proponent support to seek the relevant approvals required to operate the trial vehicle following the evaluation of the proposals submitted in the RFEOI process. Proponents also have the option to utilize interactive sessions in whatever way they like, and so these could also be used to help clarify and understand those legislative and regulatory considerations in operating the trial vehicles and use cases that they would like to propose. Now, I'd like to hand over to Daniel, our sourcing manager, who will expand a bit more on the proposal development and submission and probity for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Cissy. And good afternoon or good morning to our interstate and international attendees. Thank you all for expressing your interest and participation in this briefing. My name is Daniel Ho and I'm the Strategic Sourcing Manager for this procurement event and its associated activities. Part of my role in TFNSW is to assist the business unit in this event and to ensure that all processes follow Transport's procurement policies. The procurement policies are underpinned by the New South Wales Government's procurement policy framework, which sets out the objectives of undertaking this procurement to ensure value for money, fair and open competition, ease of collaboration to do business, innovation, and to better economic development, social outcomes, and sustainability. As you will see shared here, the relevant timings for this procurement are as follows and are as per the RFEOI document accessible on Ariba. Interactive sessions are planned to occur between August through to October 2022, with a cutoff for inquiries set at 4 p.m. on the 14th of October. The closing date follows closely after at 10 p.m. on the 16th of October. And you'll notice that I found a suitable image on the left there. Oh, sorry. The outcome of this EOI process will be made known to all participants in December, and the trial period is anticipated to be 18 months duration from January 2023 through to June the following year. Next slide, please. There are some listed conditions for participation in this EOI process. Proponents must attend at least one interactive session unless exemption has been provided from TFNSW in writing. Proposed trial vehicle must be integrated onto an existing bus route identified for testing within trial period. And proposals must include a plan for residual trial vehicle to be feasibly made reusable in operations at the conclusion of the trial period. Your proposals should focus on outlining how the proposed trial addresses the project objectives and provides value to be established as a project. Proposals can be in any chosen structure or format and contain any information respondents see as relevant. However, they must, as a minimum, include the following information, also contained in Section 10 of the RFEOI document. The scope of the proposed trial and alignment with stated TFNSW objectives and evaluation criteria. The evaluation criteria can be found in Attachment 1 of the RFEOI document, and it is to be noted that the criteria are listed in order of importance and are not of equal weight. Next slide, please. The proposal submission process is as follows. So for any urgent technical matters, such as difficulty in lodging your EOI, you can contact me through the email provided. As outlined in the minimum submission requirements, please provide available primary contact details, as the project team may have requests for information to your expression of interest proposal. If there is more than one entity, if all the details of the entities can be provided in the EOI, including the proposed relationship between the entities in the EOI submission. All EOI submissions should be lodged via TFNSW e-procurement system, the Ariba supplier portal. And should any amendments be required to the EOI, these will be released as addendums through Ariba. If you have not received login details, please contact TSS Bidder at transport.newsouthwales.gov.au. Next slide, please. Thank you. Transport is committed to fair and ethical procurement that supports the delivery of safe, sustainable, customer-centered transport infrastructure and services. Should any proponent have any concerns about the conduct or probity of the RFEOI or evaluation process, your concerns should be directed to the listed email. Transport's procurement practices, as mentioned before, are underpinned by the New South Wales Government Procurement Policy Framework and the relevant regulatory and legislative requirements as shown. All respondents must comply with Transport's codes and policies. Respondents must not contact or obtain improper assistance from Transport staff members, and all communication should be directed through the RFEOI manager, which is myself. And finally, a reminder to avoid any anti-competitive conduct, such as collusion, and to avoid and declare any conflicts of interest. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will now hand over to our MC, Julietta.
Thank you to our presenters. We'll now move on to the panel section of our forum. The final segment will be moderated by Andrew Hawley, Future Mobility Strategy and Engagement Manager at Transport for New South Wales. Andrew is the founding member of the Future Mobility team, has managed the delivery of several on-demand services and established the first permanent service in regional New South Wales. More recently, Andrew has been focused on sustainable transport technology and policy, leading the development of a statewide zero-emission bus transition strategy and launching collaborative procurement and market engagement processes to establish innovative trials and drive collaboration between the manufacturing, energy, finance, and transport sectors. Andrew, over to you.
Thanks so much, Jules, and welcome everyone onto the panel session for today. We've got a really exciting panel group assembled for you, and hopefully some great questions coming through the chat there. I will draw everyone's attention to the Q&A section that you can see up in the top corner of your Teams. We've had 12 or so questions come in and some really insightful questions there. We'd encourage you, as you are stepping through this session, any questions that you do have, please put into the panel there and we'll get to them as we go through. We've got about 50 minutes for this panel session and we've got plenty of time there to answer all of your questions. If we don't get to everything that gets brought up, we'll come back to you separately after that. So onto the panel. Now I want to welcome back Evan Walker and Sissy Chu that we've heard from, but also give a big welcome to Matt Threlkeld, the Executive Director of Bus New South Wales, Mark Rowland, the Director Integrated Network Planning and Programs from Regional and Outer Metropolitan New South Wales at Transport for New South Wales, Andy Moore, the Senior Manager Program Delivery for Greater Sydney, and Richard Skoda, the Director Program Development and in Infrastructure and Place at Transport. So to kick off the panel and give everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves, first I want to go to Mark Rowland. Mark, you do some great work there in regional and outer metropolitan New South Wales. What excites you about connected and automated vehicle technology, and why do you think it's so important to explore for our customers in those parts of the state that you represent?
Yeah, look, probably the two biggest things for us in regional outer metro, one is probably around accessibility for our community. So providing a sustainable ongoing service level to one of the most diverse communities in Australia in terms of, you know, our towns and communities in terms of the services that they can access, but also what are the different public transport models. We have a number of vulnerable communities in regional New South Wales, and it can be very costly to provide some of those services. And I suppose autonomous vehicles provide us another tool in the box to think about how do we improve the livability and well-being of these communities. You know, we talk about things like the 15-minute neighbourhood, making sure that people can connect with schools, social services when they need to. The other biggest element, of course, would be road safety, both from the element of reducing the risks of people that are at high risk on our high-speed rural roads, but also from the perspective of how can we potentially, you know, looking at reducing our expenditure on infrastructure. So you imagine that, you know, we're putting in a lot of protective barriers and wire rope. And, you know, when we think about technology, when we're thinking of things about like lane keep assist, auto emergency braking, using the data and using this technology to its full capability has the ability to not only work towards zero, but also reducing the expenditure in that space. So for us, massive benefits and outcomes, both for an access perspective and from a I suppose a health, well-being, safety perspective as well.
Excellent. Thanks so much there, Mark, and probably some great topics there to trigger some comments and questions from the audience. Matt Threlkeld, I'll go to you next. You obviously do a lot of work representing the bus industry and are quite close to technology advances there. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what Bus New South Wales does and why you think it's so important to understand what technologies are coming over the horizon so that we can maximise those opportunities for the industry?
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you to Transport for New South Wales for the opportunity to participate today. If I can make a few comments in relation to the project, Bus New South Wales certainly supports the on-road trial of a full-size connected and automated bus following the autonomous shuttle bus trials in New South Wales and the further maturation of the market. We agree that it is time to look at using CAV technology in passenger vehicles, and that having greater capacity within these vehicles and also vehicles that operate at higher speeds is important, and we can then use those vehicles as part of a mass transit solution. From an operator perspective, the on-road trial provides an opportunity to collaborate with bus manufacturers and bus suppliers, as we've heard earlier, and also with technology providers. And I think that's probably moving away from the traditional model we've seen for bus operators in the past, but certainly one that has been embraced with a number of other projects that involve technology, such as the provision of on-demand bus services. With an accelerated fleet replacement program to transition to zero-emission buses, as we've heard about earlier as well, and in particular what is planned for Greater Sydney over the coming years, I think it's important that any lag in standardising CAV technology in new buses is minimised, and that seems to be a bit of a theme for today's presentation. At this point, we consider that there will still be a role for human resources, given the size of these vehicles and also their weight, though obviously the skill set will change in relation to using level 4 automated vehicles. So we're hopeful that this will provide an attraction for a new cohort of people to come into the industry and certainly assist operators with their recruitment. There are some challenges that we face, particularly in regard to rebuilding bus patronage to pre-COVID levels, and I think that's where this project gives us a real opportunity to explore where we can get to with the use of this particular technology for customers, particularly those with disabilities, and what may be achievable in terms of using that connected part of the technology. We also think there's some opportunities in regard to automation to improve safety, which has been touched on for pedestrians, which will obviously be beneficial as we put more quieter zero-emission buses on the road. So I might leave it there, Andrew, and happy to answer any questions as we move through the panel session.
Thanks, Matt. And a few good prompters there as well for a couple of our conversations, and I see some questions coming up into the Q&A panel there. One of those themes that you mentioned was the zero-emission bus transition. I'll throw over now to Richard Skoda, who's leading the transition development work there. Richard, if you want to give yourself a bit of an introduction, tell us what you're doing in the zero-emission bus space and why you're so excited about understanding new technology and how New South Wales can get at the forefront for providing these great services and technologies for customers.
Thanks, Andrew. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Richard Skoda. I'm a Director of Project Development within Transport. So myself and my team have been working over the past number of years on zero-emission buses and what it means for not just our customers, but our operators, our suppliers, and so on. So we spent a bit of time trying to put together what we're calling now a zero-emission bus transition plan to sort of look at how we can sustainably transition all our existing diesel and compressed natural gas fleets to zero emissions. So we do have a bit of a plan that was published back in June, which goes into a little bit more detail from some of the previous information that we've provided. Where previously we were looking at doing a transition all in one go, we've now sort of sat back and paused and taken on board advice from the likes of Matt from Bus New South Wales, from our operators and so on, to look at how we can come up with a plan or approach which does things in an appropriate way, and also make sure that, as well as allowing for the time for suppliers and so on to understand our transition timings, but it also provides an opportunity with the timings that we've got to introduce potentially local content. Also an opportunity for operators to get ready in the different parts of New South Wales and ensure that they're ready to take on the new technology. So just to sort of summarise the transition plan, we are currently planning to transition over 3,000 buses in the Greater Sydney area by the 2035 timeframe, and then in parallel with that, transitioning another 1,000 or so buses in the outer metropolitan space. So, key regional or town centres such as the Central Coast, Wollongong, Newcastle done in that time frame. And then lastly, we're looking at rural and regional areas and having those parts of New South Wales transition by the 2047 time frame. So for us, we've done it in this way because, you know, there's a lot of new technology and emerging technology. There's a lot of lessons for us to learn with what's happening in the rural and regional space. So hence why the transition's a little bit later there. At the same time, we want to ensure that as we're going out to market and buying buses, we're doing it in a sustainable fashion where there's a nice steady state of procurement for buses over a period of time, so that there aren't suddenly a big peak and then a drop off in bus orders, so that there's a sort of a sustainable approach. So what really excites me about this is once we go to a zero emission buses, the technology on these buses is at the next level. Opportunities to put on newer technologies like making them connected automated vehicles is a really big opportunity. There's also a lot of other options that we can look at and seek as a part of this process as we move forward. So for me, I'm really excited to be working with Richard's team, includes Evan and Andrew and the wider team, to sort of see what opportunities there are there, and seeing what it's the appropriate time to sort of start putting some of that key technology on those buses, and trying to figure out what's the sweet spot on that. And I think Evan probably gave some analogies and examples earlier around, future-proofing our buses, so that when the technology is there, the software's there, we've got all the appropriate legislation and rules in place, so we can roll these out and really, get some really good benefits. So really keen to be involved in this, and I know that it's something that we know we can't do on our own, and I'm sure it's been mentioned a number of times already today. We need to be working with yourselves to sort of come up with these solutions. We're not the knowledge experts in everything, and that's why we want to partner up with yourselves to sort of, look at what are our constraints, what are our challenges, what are our opportunities, so we can really make the most out of this technology going forward.
Thanks for that, Richard. One of the themes that you touched on at the end there was about CAV technology, timeframes, and how they're enabled on the roads. Noting, Evan, that we've just released the CAV readiness strategy, which is obviously much broader than just buses. We've had some other questions through the Q&A there that talk about technology timeframes and readiness and how they can evolve. Do you want to just touch broadly on what New South Wales is doing in the readiness strategy from a regulatory perspective, and what we're seeing in terms of technology and when that technology is starting to hit the roads?
Yeah, look, thanks, Andrew. It's a question that often comes up. What we know, broadly or globally, is that this technology is on the road network already in countries internationally, in China, in Europe, and in the US. And one of the limitations in seeing the complexity and high order of tech in Australia is the tyranny of distance, and then the kind of the opportunities that we're setting as a nation. And I think having a readiness strategy like this is really about accelerating that technology rollout here, where we think it's going to provide benefits to our customers. At a really specific level, at our testing and research centre in Coodle, we see the latest and greatest in cars that you can buy right now. From there all the way to highly automated technology you can apply to current vehicles, or fully automated things like shuttle buses, etc. So we've tested a range of tech in New South Wales already at a small scale, and we know from our experience what we're seeing internationally, that this is the right time to develop a readiness strategy, because we're expecting specific use cases for cab tech to really start seeing real world application over the next 5 years leading into 2027, where at that point there'll be a national legislative framework which will allow commercial deployment at a larger scale. So we're confident that over the next 5 years of this strategy, we'll be able to see and attract much higher orders of the tech. The CAV bus example is a great example where we're really at the leading edge. We know that in the US they've launched a very similar project at the same time, and we've seen some examples of level 2, level 3 tech in buses already. So yeah, it's really a good time to start looking at these things and going from the smaller scale work we've done and we're very confident with, to these bigger applications, which are very real world, where we're going to see exactly what the outcomes are for our customers and how they support the tangible projects that we're doing, like zero emission bus, for sure.
That's great. Thanks, Evan. So one of the specific questions that have come up around timing, and Brian Smith, thank you for this one. To Sissy, when we talk about timing, Transport for New South Wales had a market sounding around both zero emission bus technology and CAV technology in 2019. What's really changed since then? What are we seeing in the industry, and why is now the right time for this trial?
Thanks, Andrew, for the question. So I guess moving to a phase where we are accelerating the zero emissions bus transition, what we realised is we really need to accelerate our understanding of this technology as well as and how it applies to that transition. And so we've put the money up for a trial to really help ourselves and industry to bring in those learnings so that the technology that we put into the transitioned fleet are future-proofed, and we have thought about that. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Sissy. Some of the other questions that have come up are talking about the kind of groups that can come together into a trial, noting that the bus industry is a lot bigger than just a bus. There's a lot of other parts and players in that network. Matt Freckhold, I'm keen to go to you first onto this one to expand a little bit about some of those opportunities that you mentioned in your opening. Just an industry view here of what kind of opportunities there are and what kind of players would you see in the bus ecosystem that can come together to understand and benefit from this.
Thanks, Andrew. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, I think we've probably moved away from what was that sort of traditional model of bus operators more or less doing everything in terms of the delivery of services to now more of a collaboration model where bus operators are partnering with other industry suppliers. So in terms of this particular project, certainly bus operators will need to get together with bus manufacturers and bus suppliers, and also in terms of bringing in that connected and automated vehicle technology with companies that have expertise in that area that can bring that to the table. So I think in addition to that, there's probably some opportunities there to also look at partnering up with universities, for example, who may be able to assist in terms of looking at how these projects can be evaluated. And I think there's certainly been some interest from those tertiary institutions in the past with these technology projects. So I'd certainly encourage those proponents that are looking to participate to look at maybe getting involved with a university as well.
Thanks, Matt. And so that theme there of collaboration and opportunities, Mark Rowland, I'll put this one to you. We've got a question here saying that while Transport for New South Wales can fund improvements to line marking, this is limited to state-owned roads. How will CAVs operate on local government roads? And effectively, how can New South Wales collaborate with councils and others to make sure that we're really looking at the road network readiness for this new technology?
Yeah, I think it's really important that I suppose we look at it as one network, one customer. So, I mean, as our customers travel across the network, they don't kind of think who are the different road managers they are traveling through. And so for us, we put a significant investment into the local and regional road network every year, whether or not it's through block grants or fixing country roads or fixing local roads. And so for us, partnerships with local government and looking at how those trials can occur on their roads or their networks or support their communities is just as important. And I suppose, we have community in place here in ROM, and they work and they partner with local government to look at those, those different services. We also fund particular initiatives around community transport and also thinking around improving services. So for me, you know, when we go back 5 years ago looking at on-demand transport, you know, we talked a lot about pilots and trials of on-demand, and that's now a business as usual. So they're running on-demand services. If you have a look at our website, you'll see there's a number of on-demand services that now form part of the local public transport network. And so I suppose there'd be opportunities potentially through this trials, having a look at those types of services or improving those or adding to them. So I would definitely say don't think about local and state government, you know, as this kind of, you know, black line. It is very much, you know, we are taking the position, one network, one customer, and how do we look at ways of funding and delivering those services. You know, we've particularly seen in recent times with the disaster events up in the north, we just can't be two different entities. We need to work as one and look at different. And again, when I was saying before around sustainable funding options, these trials allow us to understand what is a sustainable funding outcome going into the future, and this allows us to drive improved accessibility into those communities. So
that's great. Thank you, Mark. So just extending that theme there about, I guess, collaboration and funding. Evan, there's a question here about sort of effectively why is New South Wales and New South Wales taxpayers, you know, pushing this through and not joined up across governments across Australia. Obviously, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes across jurisdictions. Do you want to expand a little bit about opportunities that we're seeing in that space?
Yeah, look, absolutely, Andrew. I'd say firstly, what happens behind the scenes is we're always on national committees where we share what we learn and what we discover in these things. Zero emission buses is a great example. We meet regularly with all our, you know, comrades in all the different jurisdictions around the country to talk about what we're doing. But New South Wales has always taken a leadership role with some of this new technology, and the reason why we're investing is because we can see direct outcomes for New South Wales customers. Our network's probably different to a lot of other jurisdictions. We've definitely got the largest bus network in the country. So the benefits from this tech is really, it realises a lot, you know, there is significant benefit realisation for us where it makes a lot of sense for us to show some leadership. But those things are always shared nationally for sure. And I think us having that leadership position, it does help the rest of the country, some of the other jurisdictions which might not have the opportunity that we have to take that forward. And certainly we do learn from the other jurisdictions when they do take things forward. A great example is the Metro bus up in Brisbane at the moment, where they're looking at a large scale articulated bus that we're interested to see how that works. So different jurisdictions take the lead on different things, but we all do collaborate behind the scenes.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Evan. And on that theme of collaboration here, we've got a great question from someone from the wireless connectivity sector. So Tim, thank you for this one, talking about, I guess, your interest in this space and how you can get involved. Sissy, I'll put this one to you. You shared a screen about a collaboration portal. Could you expand a bit about the collaboration opportunities between different parts of industry and any advice for Tim for how to get involved in that?
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so there are plenty of opportunities for collaboration in this trial, and we very much support it here at Transport because we do see this as the seed of a start of this industry development rather than the be-all and end-all. So there will be a lot of opportunity for growth in the future and for many collaborations between different industry parties. So in terms of how to actually collaborate, the collaboration portal that we've put up will allow you to connect with other different parties who have also put their profiles up and reach out to them. So we really encourage everybody to put up a profile, and you'll be able to search the different parties interested and where in what categories their skills and capabilities are. In terms of other opportunities for feedback, there's also the opportunity to come to us through the interactive sessions, which can be booked through our future mobility mailbox. So we also encourage that for people looking for some feedback directly on their ideas or looking for more direction on how else they can collaborate. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks so much, Sissy. Next question, so we'll throw it open to all of the panel. Had a question here about the key challenges in this space, what we see, and I'll pivot that as well to include what are the opportunities out of this space. First, I'll go to Evan, then to Richard, Mark, and Matt. So Evan, what do you see as the key challenges in this space when we're talking about connected and automated vehicles and buses in particular, and what do we need to do to understand those?
Look, Andrew, look, there's a range of challenges, and so what I'd really talk to are the ones that we've learnt already from our CAV program. So for us, access to technology in Australia is a challenge. There's some really leading automated technology in the country in the mining and also, I guess, the port sector. But when it comes to passenger transport, we are a bit behind. So I think programs where we can bring the best in class to New South Wales is really important, and Australia consequently. And then there's the specific challenges around getting the tech to operate on the road network. So we've got a safety research and testing centre out at Kudal, which is equipped to help us kind of explore the safety framework, and then we've got a legislative framework where we can put things on the road network. So there's the practicality of getting those things together. And then the last thing is making sure that when we get the tech here, it actually is delivering on something that's really valuable for our customers. So we've run some small scale trials, which have been fantastic. They've delivered some firsts, but what we really want to see is that level of tech and opportunity that's going to deliver real world outcomes, and that is another challenge that we're facing. So there's a few. There's around tech, there's around safety, and there's around the right kind of use cases that we're going to see some great outcomes for people in New South Wales.
Thanks for that, Evan. Richard, over to you. Key challenges that you see in this space and what we need to do to understand them.
Thanks, Andrew. So for me, and this is sort of sharing lessons learned from the Zero Emission Buses project, is with the introduction of any new technology, particularly when you're leading the pack, there's always the biggest challenge from my perspective, which is cost, and really being able to understand what the costs are and how do we justify this type of investment when you look at the number of buses we've got on the network. So it goes back to some of the points that Evan raised around benefits realisation. What are the outcomes we're trying to achieve? You know, the opportunity is we've got to really work together to really identify what all of those benefits and opportunities are. Really make sure that we can articulate that appropriately to make sure that everyone understands that, you know, there's some really good reasons for why we want to pursue this technology further.
Thanks, Richard. Mark, over to you.
Yeah, I think, you know, we heard a bit about use cases today. I think for me, you know, particularly around interfaces that have a lot of risks, the one that probably comes to mind is around level crossings. And we've seen, you know, I think somebody said around connected autonomous vehicles, we overestimate the immediate impact, but underestimate the long-term impacts it will have. And, you know, connected autonomous vehicles, particularly the technology that's coming out of them, things like LiDAR and radar, those types of technologies is what's allowed us to automate the train system up in Western Australia. So all those level crossings now have LiDAR and radar that detect whether or not the crossing's blocked, and they can also communicate to vehicles. And so for me, those use cases about how the vehicles talk to infrastructure, but also how we get the data out of them. Transport have been doing a lot of work around collecting information on potholes, and that allows us then to do preventative maintenance. And so thinking a little bit outside the square around these vehicles and what they allow us to do in terms of the data or to form how we improve our services, both from maintenance, but also the delivery of services. The other big thing I would say is, you know, over a third of all Aboriginal Australians live in regional outer metro New South Wales. We've got 62 discrete communities. And because I suppose of history, some of those communities are just on the outside of towns and sometimes don't get the services. And so I think if, looking at some of those options, particularly communities that have been hit hardest by climate change or recent disaster events, would be most amenable to. I know recently we've passed the rail trails bill that allows us to use our dormant corridors and other innovative ways. Always looking for opportunities to use our infrastructure better. And I did say around the kind of around the active transport, particularly around the data, pedestrians and cyclists. So, we are starting to look at how do we sort of put more protected bike lanes and things like that in, but as an immediate term is thinking about how our vulnerable and active transport users interact with these vehicles or know that they're safe. So what is the I suppose, how do they know that the vehicle has picked them up? Is there a red light or something, or how do they know and how do they interact with these vehicles? I suppose from a human factors perspective would be one for me as well. Thanks.
Thanks for that one, Mark. Some great thoughts there. Matt, over to your side. Key challenges that you see in this space, and I guess why we need to explore this and why we need to do that collaboratively with all parts of industry to understand and shape those opportunities for the future.
Yeah, I think there's a few, Andrew, and some of these have been touched on in the comments that have just been made, as well as through the presentation. Certainly the regulatory environment, and I know Evan touched on this earlier in terms of the work that's being undertaken with the National Transport Commission in terms of what laws may apply nationally in relation to autonomous vehicles, and then what happens in terms of the road transport legislation and rules in New South Wales. So I know that there is some legislation that facilitates for the trials to happen, but post those trials, what needs to occur in terms of changes to legislation to facilitate for this type of technology to be used more widely. The next one is relating to infrastructure, and I know that there were just some comments around the road network and the potholes. So I think the recent wet weather has been a bit of a reminder to us all in terms of what impact that can have on roads and what challenges that may present in terms of autonomous vehicles. The next one is training. So I think for the bus industry, on the back of what we're seeing in the zero emission bus space and the training requirements for both drivers and maintenance staff in terms of battery electric vehicles and also for hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, that this technology also brings another level of complexity for staff to be able to be trained up to deal with things like the radars and lidars, which were just mentioned. So I think there'll need to be some work done in terms of how registered training organisations pick up the opportunities for that type of training through micro credentials, or even through the VET system, and what may be developed in the future in terms of nationally recognised units of competency that allow for operator staff to be trained up, and also supplier staff to be able to do maintenance in relation to this new technology. And the final one for me is around insurance. So I think that's also an important topic in regard to this technology and the project, and some conversations that will need to take place with underwriters and what may apply in terms of the insurance that's available for these types of vehicles. Obviously, we're talking about significant capital investment in a vehicle, and what insurance would be available and how that might compare to the insurance that applies today to a standard bus, and also in terms of public liability and whether there's any potential impacts there in terms of the insurance that may be available when we're talking about the use of autonomous vehicles. They're just a few for me.
Yeah, thanks, thanks, Matt. A very comprehensive list there. I think just picking up on two of those themes that you mentioned that also cross over with some other questions that we've had come through. Evan, I'll put this one to you. Matt talked a lot of there about the regulation and the legislation side. We've had a question come through about the trials in particular and what New South Wales has done with legislation to enable that. And then the second theme that Matt picked up there is insurance. So my question to you is, what is New South Wales doing? What is Transport for New South Wales doing to support these trials? And how will we support operators and industry that pitch opportunities to us?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Look, our role, I guess, I mean, if I look at the connected and automated vehicle space holistically, the role we've always taken is to create the opportunity for industry to innovate. The way we do that is seed funding, is vision, but then at a tactical level, it's about us creating the legislative framework and also the safety assurance framework for these trials to happen. So any trial, whether it's the bus trial or the previous trials we've had, we've got a testing and research capability where we can walk whatever proponent it is, whatever collaboration it is, through the development of a safety case to get things onto the road network within the New South Wales legislative framework. So it's really, we can collaborate directly on that. So for example, the shuttle trials, Richard Host at the top of the meeting spoke about how we had a world first in terms of getting a driverless shuttle without any supervisor into a public space. And that was done through really strong collaboration with the technology provider. We worked through our safety systems at Transport, and using our legislative framework, we were able to do that. So that's the kind of support we can provide to trials. And it's this kind of support we really want to offer industry in any of these projects. When it comes to the specifics of, you know, who's responsible in terms of insurance and in terms of those kind of things, that's really been a topic of learning for us since 2016 and 2017 when we launched our first project at Sydney Olympic Park. The legislation we have allows us to deem responsibility under the Act. So depending on what the trial's like, who the operators are, how the vehicle works, all those kind of things, we can identify and publish who we consider responsible for the project, for sure. So they're the kind of things we've done. And when it comes to insurance, we partner really closely with our state insurance regulatory authority, CIRA, and the relevant insurers to make sure that we do have the right insurance coverage for all our projects. So to date, we've been able to ensure there's third-party insurance and public liability insurance for everything that we've trialled on the road network. And it's about the learning in insurance as much as anything else. So these trials are designed so the whole ecosystem will learn, the insurers will learn, our government partners will learn, and we provide that platform for industry really to innovate and learn as well. So that's what it's all about. It's about the whole ecosystem coming together, learning with our support, but especially on the safety and regulatory side.
Great, thanks for that, Evan, and perfect timing to cover off another question there about the insurance industry. Are they on side? So some great timing there from your end. And just to note, a lot of these questions get quite specific in detail and relevant to each individual trial. So we'll capture questions generally in the forum today. However, as Sissy mentioned, there are the opportunities through the one-on-one sessions and through questions to come back. So if there is anything really specific about the trial or the opportunity that you're looking at, there are a number of other avenues that we can engage directly to answer those for you. So just wrapping up those conversations there about the challenges that we all see in this space and in this trial and in these opportunities. One of the questions and the themes that comes through is, well, as we step through trials and exploration of the technology, what does success look like and how are those learnings captured and implemented and utilised? Sissy, first to you, what does success look like, particularly in the CAV full-size bus trial? And then Richard, to your side, how are the learnings going to be implemented for your initiative and for other initiatives across transport?
Thanks, Andrew. So specifically from an on-road CAV bus trial perspective, the success that we'd be looking for is really to learn through this trial. We'd like to be able to push the technology and industry to pull proposals together that really do push that technology as much as we can. We want to see how much we can draw out of this, and the way we capture those learnings are through our trial evaluation frameworks that then get translated into trial reportings that we then go and publish and then distribute and share between different parties. So that's how we go about doing our getting those learnings, but really the success is the learnings itself and the opportunity.
Great, and on that theme, Richard, so as learnings are captured, how do they get implemented across transport?
Okay, so following on from what Sissy spoke about, so those learnings will help projects in the future, and it will also help the work we're doing in the zero emission buses space. As I mentioned earlier, we've got this opportunity at the moment where we're doing this, almost a refresh of buses over a particular time frame. We do have an opportunity at different periods of the bus transition to pause, stop, look at new technology and look at the opportunities. So some of the successes, that I see coming out of this are around, we might not be able to get to full automation on a road, but there are steps and different opportunities at different parts of the pilots that we're looking at today. So we could, for me, success would be, if we can, look at things like, for example, in the shorter term, what we do with connected buses in depots, for example, is there anything we can do there while working with operators? Are there opportunities there? And taking that small step to build confidence in the work we're doing, and then see where we go forward. Seeing some of those types of demonstrations and proof, and see, the old saying, proof is in the pudding. Seeing some demonstrated, successes in some of the trials and what we do, and a lot of what we're doing and planning is assumptions, and actually being able to validate some of our assumptions with real world stats, data and information, so that we can analyse that and take it forward. Because what that does then is strengthen our argument for further funding and further work into development of this technology, how we can start incorporating into our buses into the future.
Thanks for that, Richard. Going to go through now some rapid fire questions to Sissy. We've had a number of detailed questions come up about funding, about timing, and about specific scope of the EOI that's gone out. So Sissy, here we go. First one, funding. The $5 million, is that total or for each individual trial?
That's total funding. We'll be looking to enable as many projects as we can, looking for proposals with value for money.
Great. Timing. So there's been some questions here about the maturity of the technology, what's achievable in the near term, and the 18 months that you mentioned. What are you looking for at the timing and getting vehicles onto the road?
So from a timing perspective, we are constrained to the 18-month initial trialling period, hence why we've also built in that risk factor of being able to pull that bus back into operations if we were to stop trialling after the 18 months. So that's not the ideal case for us, but we've built that into this proposal because we from a sustainability perspective, we want to make sure that this bus at the end of the day is something that we can use after the trial as well.
So I guess key message there, Sissy, is you're looking for industry to propose trials that can get onto at as high a level of automation as possible to get onto the road, to get those learnings over the 18 months, and then feed those into the other projects, as you mentioned there.
Yes, just one more point to touch on there. So we are looking for this bus to go on the road to test with our customers. That specific timing of how long you might want to trial on the road is open to the proponent. So they may want to test within a depot for most of their trial and only bring the vehicle out for a smaller phase, or vice versa. It's really up to the proponents identifying where those use cases with value are to test and learn from.
Excellent. And then the last question here, so Sissy, I'll put this to you and then open up if anybody else wants to jump in on it, is around the country of origin of the manufactured bus. So is that limited to being just assembled and manufactured in Australia, or is it open to international models as well?
So for this trial, what we see is a really great opportunity to really uplift our local capability and bringing in our local suppliers and manufacturers. We have specified local assembly, although not to any specific extent. So we will be accepting proposals all the way through that range, although we do encourage our local manufacturing and our local suppliers to get involved in this trial.
Excellent. And I'll just open that theme up to the panel. So we've talked a lot today about opportunities, about different parts of the industry coming together. Any views, probably Richard or Matt from your side, about local production and how we can foster those opportunities for our industry, which I know is a leader to understand what those opportunities look like?
Okay, so from my perspective, there's a lot of different organisations out there that are looking to sort of promote local content. Build. It's not just about jobs, but it's also about trying to educate our local manufacturing industry and build some intellectual property within New South Wales and Australia. It's really trying to foster that development. Foster some of our local organisations and companies and suppliers to invest in building that IP. So there are organisations like Investment New South Wales out there that do provide grants. So I encourage you to go out and go on their website to talk to their respective representatives to see what opportunities there are there, because they really want to foster that that development of that local intellectual property and so on. So as well as that, there's an opportunity to sort of work with some of the suppliers that are looking at zero emission buses now and seeing if they want to expand on their current remit and do more. So there's an opportunity for partnerships there as well, if in some cases as well. So I encourage you to go out there. Matt will probably reiterate this. The operators out there and also the suppliers, they are quite keen. They're not afraid of new technology. They want to get involved. They want to be upfront and be in there first. So, definitely encourage you to get out there and have those conversations.
Great, thanks for that, Richard. We might spin around now and do some final observations, final thoughts from the panel. So Matt, if there was anything else that you wanted to add there, that's the opportunity. Evan, I'll go to you first, and I might prime your final observation with a question or a theme that's come through around, there's been a lot of talk about this cab full-size bus opportunity. There are obviously different size buses out there. There are obviously different types of vehicles. You spoke about the strategy in your opening. Do you have any final messages for industry about what New South Wales is doing in this space and how they can get involved in that?
Yeah, look, Andrew, the thing I'd add is this is the first big or large-scale initiative under our cab readiness strategy. So it is specific around a full-size automated bus because that's the particular space we want to look at, and it coincides with the zero-emission bus transition, which is why someone like Richard's here, and we've got Bus New South Wales represented. But that's not the end of our cab readiness strategy. So have a look through the strategy. You can see we're really interested in first and last mile, AV rideshare, freight servicing, large scale, small scale, industry development. So we're interested in the plethora of what is out there. The cab bus trial is one specific initiative, but we're really keen to hear on a number of fronts, and there'll be more to come. I guess that's what I'd say. There'll be much more to come. Go through the strategy, have a look at the initiatives, and let your imagination run, because that's what it's about, trying to imagine the future of transport globally, New South Wales, Australia, and working with us to kind of make that a reality.
Great, thanks for that, Evan. And just final observations, so quickly from the rest of the panel. Mark, I'll pass to you next.
Yeah, just to reiterate, some of those use cases again around infrastructure and connectivity, I'll call out level crossings again, and just taking an opportunity just to remember that sometimes those communities that don't get maybe as much exposure to sometimes this type of technology. So really looking for those use cases as well. Thanks.
Perfect. Matt Threlkeld, final words.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, look, we just would like to commend the New South Wales government for taking a leadership role with regard to getting the industry ready for this new technology. We certainly are looking forward to seeing the results of the trial and how it's received by passengers. So thanks again for the opportunity.
Thanks, Matt. And Andy, thanks for jumping on. Any final observations or key thoughts from your side?
Apologies, I was late. Look, I'm glad we're putting this out to the market, and I'm looking forward to it being a good learning for Transport for New South Wales, and particularly looking forward to seeing what we can integrate into the rollout of zero emission buses as we go.
Perfect. And on that note, Richard, any final thoughts from your end?
I guess from my perspective, it's just, embrace this opportunity. We've got an opportunity to really shape what we do with this technology in New South Wales. So, as has been mentioned by everyone else, get involved and share your ideas with us. Share your concerns, share your where you see the opportunities. If you don't think we've got our case studies right, let us know what are the other opportunities, if there's any new case studies out there. We want to make the most of this technology. Thank you.
Excellent. So thanks everyone for those final comments there. Sissy, I know you got a lot out there in the final fast questions there. So thank you for that as well. Just to close off this Q&A panel session, we've covered a lot of questions that came through, but there are a number that we didn't get to, and some of those are quite specific and some great questions. So we will publish some answers to those to everybody after this session. And as we mentioned, our door is always open for conversations about the broader strategy, and there are opportunities through the EOI process for one-on-ones there as we go through. So thank you again for everyone, and I'll pass back to Jules to close off the session.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you to all our guests who have joined us today and all of you for attending. We know that the transition to CAVs is going to be a big and exciting journey ahead, and we want to work closely with you to shape the future of CAVs and New South Wales transport. If you haven't considered a partnership with New South Wales Government, now is the time. And New South Wales Government has plans to continue this mission for workplace innovation, growth, through solid funding to develop our technology hubs and service offerings. I hope you feel eager and inspired to come along the future transport journey with us. We believe our work will enable CAV revolution and are so incredibly excited for the road ahead. For further information on the CAV strategy, the CAV on-road bus trial can be found on our listed industry portals and websites. A recording of today's session and the slide pack will be available on our industry portal. And finally, any further questions, please send them through to our project team email that's on your screen now. Thank you all once again for attending. From all of us, take care and stay safe.